welcome guys to the third part of the bathroom tile. This is going to be the roughness section. It should be the last section. Similar to the base color, this one is pretty simple. Um, so let's get right into it. I'll just get rid of these things so we have more space. And alright, so we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to start here with a uniform color. And we're going to blend that. And we're going to use we're going to follow most of our base color because a lot of our noise here is going to be used on the roughness. Alright, so the first one is going to be this guy over here. Actually, I should probably move this over. And we're just going to get some things set up here because we're going to be doing a lot of copy pasting. Now let's get a I suggest you have this and then just copy paste a couple of these. Maybe like this. Because we're just going to keep going down the line. Alright, so for this one, we're going to be pulling from after the vector warp. So from here. And then these are the settings for the levels. And let's plug this in so we can start seeing our changes. It's a long graph. Oops, I accidentally just put that here as a placeholder. Let's move this guy up. Okay. Alright, let's set this up. Let me just set up the height scale here. I think we left it at 1. And then I'm going to go with 6 on the tessellation factor. Okay. So we started with this. This is, if I hide this, this is our base roughness, and it's being applied to everything. We'll be adding the roughness to the grout, later down, like we do with the base color. So this is our first pass on our roughness, and we're using this guy from the base color. All right, next. We're going to pull from the black and white spots. That's not black and white spots. Oh, this is a new one. This one doesn't come from the base color. All right, so we're gonna start with a black and white. Spots 1. Then we're gonna divide it by 2. And this blend mode is set to add, and this one also add, because I'm trying to layer on the roughness, and I want the whatever roughness is below it to also be applied to the new one. So here we're getting another layer of roughness. So if we look over here, and it's very subtle, we're just going to keep piling up. And for this one, this is the grunge leaky paint. So after this transform. Then we need a levels. And this level set to this. Then after this, we're going to do a fractal sum 4 into a histogram range. Into a sharpen. Into this levels. Oh, and for the uniform color here, I'm keeping it white. Make sure you're set to grayscale and change your resolution down to -7 by -7 to make it 16. And this one's also add. I think so far they've all been add linear dodge. Okay. Then after this, we're going to do the same thing. For this one, however, we're going to be pulling from after this vector warp grayscale. Angle this just so you guys can see the changes. So we're gonna pull from this guy. And again, it's just very, very subtle. We don't want it to be too overpowering, because then you shouldn't have like this super rough mess. It's all about layering. Also set to add. Then for this one, we are going to be pulling from this guy here. From after the sharpen. We'll pull from here. Set to add. And we're just gonna keep going down the line, so this one's next. So actually, set to add. This one from after the transform 2D. Set to add. Set to a low value here. From the 2D transform. So these are some of the like the water spots here. You can see that it's already becoming more interesting. This one's set to add. Then we're gonna go over here. I try to line it up with like where it's coming from, just to keep it, makes it easier to keep track of. Boom, boom. I don't think anything really changed on this one. So now we're adding this guys from before. Very cool. Whoops. So far they've all been set to add linear dodge, except for this last one we're doing right now. This one's being set to copy. Alright. Let's move this forward. Now here we're going to do a black and white spots. This is something that was exclusive to the roughness. Then follow it up by transform 2D. And I just divided it by 2. And we have our vector warp grayscale. And it's going to be this guy, I believe. Yeah, I think this is the last time we use him. Because then we move on to the grout. Oh, he's all the way over here. Set this to 5. Another very subtle value here. And this one is set to subtract. So here we want to add, we're basically adding moisture because we're subtracting this value that we made here from those black and white spots. And because we're subtracting, we're getting into the darker areas, so we're just going to make it look glossier or wet. So it's very subtle because it's not, this is like a kind of like the morning after a shower. Okay. Now we're going to be moving on to the grout stuff. So I'm just going to move these guys in here. Using a 16 by 16 uniform color, but this one's set to 0.8. And we need to pull from our green mask here. I'm just going to pull from here because it's coming from the grout mask. And then this is our base roughness for the grout. That's why I used a different value. And the reason why it's copied is because we're using a solid mask where the mask is completely white. And so because it's completely white, then it's pulling 100% of whatever information is in here, which in this case happens to be 0.8. So this color is dictating the base roughness of the grout. This one is set to add linear dodge again. We're back to +1 on grayscale, 16 by 16, uniform color. And then here we're going to be doing number 10. So our grout dips. Oh, it's all the way back here. So let's actually grab everything here. Just kind of move it back a little bit. Don't forget to grab this guy, or he's going to be left behind. Yeah, let's just move back so that this guy, the last guy we just added, kind of lines up with number 10 here. if I had to grab these guys down here as well. Actually, don't grab this. Oops, hold on. Grab these guys and grab this guy. Then do that. Some of these have to move, some of them not. So for example, this can probably just get plugged in right there. And then we can get rid of that. Here we'll need to make a new one for this guy. And then we'll make another one here. That way they're not kind of cutting through. And just delete the, or backspace the ones you're not using. Alright. We'll make another one for this guy. It's all about keeping yourself clean and organized. There we go. That looks better. This can probably just go in here. There we go. Okay, so again, before the levels, we're going to plug that into this levels. We're just going with the 0.3. And what we're doing here is we're taking the, what do we call this? The grout dips, or like the deeper parts, and we're making them rougher because they're sitting deeper. So you can see that it's more white. Alright. Next we have here we're going to run a ambient occlusion after 10. So anywhere between 10 and 11. So I'm going to choose about here because that's about where my blend mode is. And we're going to pull out, do an ambient occlusion. Actually, I'm going to pull this back a bit. Then from that, I'm going to do a levels. If it doesn't plug in from like the ambient occlusion to the levels, you might have to go from the levels to the ambient occlusion. I'm not sure why, but sometimes the way she goes. Then after that, we're going to do a blend. And we're going to subtract out the mask. We'll pull from this guy. So this is from the green one. Because right now I want to get some roughness around the tiling or the tiles. So that, for example, these parts here are a little bit rougher than the flat surface. And then we're going to plug that in here. And that's set to add. So now you can see here that we have like a little bit of roughness around the tiles. Before, it just looks like this. And now we got a little bit of roughing around there. That one's set to add as well. And this one is set to copy, this new one here. And here we're going to pull from 11. So from this guy before the levels, let's move down. And the levels, I don't think we did anything with it, so they can just stay the same unless you want to tweak it. What's this one doing? Oh, these little super tiny details, which are like the super tiny crevices around the tile and the grout, right on the edges. Very subtle detail. We're almost actually near the end. Okay. Then we have this one. This one is set to add. And here we're pulling from 12. So right before the levels. So again, just a little bit more roughness around these like deeper parts. Because we don't want the grout to just be completely the same roughness value, because then it'll just look flat. Okay, so that was 12. Now we're working on 13 here. These are tiny details here. Before, after, you can see it changing there. So that was 13. Now we're moving on to 14. .05. This one was add. This one's also add. This one's very hard to see, but it's like right there. Alright, move on. Now we're working on 15. This one's set to add as well. I'm just pulling from there as usual. Oh, these are our tiny little holes. Since they're probably the deepest parts of the grout, they're going to be a little bit rougher. Okay, that one's set to add. Now we're moving on to 16. I didn't touch this one, it looks like. This is the peeling grout. Okay, now for this one, and this is set to add as well. This one's a little different because we're going to be pulling from the color here. Low value of 0.1. Set to add still. We're basically just adding this detail to it. Then we're going for 17. Like so. Those are the values. Oh, this is for the kind of like the grout that was brushed on like the sides of the tiles. And that is set to add. Then we have another one right after for 18. Just one with 0.8 for that one. Now we're moving on to 19. I know this one's pretty dry. Not too much excitement going on in this one, but you know, sometimes it's the way she goes. It is what it is. plug that puppy in there. I didn't touch this one. This one's set to copy. And what is this one? Oh, more specs. Okay. So these are the other specs that we added. Okay, just about done. Make sure your stuff is getting plugged in. This one's set to add. These are the minor grout specs here. Then for 21, actually I didn't do anything with 21, but I did do stuff with these guys up here. So let's grab these two levels here, and then they're going to correspond to these guys. So this one's going to be for the lower one, and then this one for the top guy. And then these are the top 0.4 for the top one, and then for the bottom one, it just stayed the same. And then we blend these together with max lighten. Then we just plug it into a add linear dodge. And then we have two more things to do, or one more thing to do. Looking pretty good. One last step here, and we're calling it. We have a grunge leaks. This is just kind of like an extra noise I threw on top, kind of like a macro noise. Because right now, most of these are like tiny micro details that are pretty much the same for all tiles. So now I just kind of want to add like a blanket roughness noise on top. And we have a warp here with intensity of 0.325. Another Perlin noise. And see now it's giving it some like wave to it, so it's not so perfectly straight. We have a levels, and I'm not putting this through a warp grayscale or a vector warp grayscale because I don't want it to stop at the end of the tile. I want it to continue down, kind of like it's dripping down. So that's what I mean by macro, because I don't want it to be like cutting and starting based on the tiles. So I'm not using the vector warp grayscale thing. So you can see here that this noise kind of carries over from tile to tile because it would be dripping, so it wouldn't make sense. And it just kind of adds a nice little layer of bring some of the roughness back down. Maybe we could even go a little bit lower, or yeah, we're subtracting for this one, so we would need to go higher if we want to subtract more. So you can see here, you can get more of this effect, which kind of makes it look more wet. So I didn't go too hard on it, but if you'd like, you can. This would look, I guess, like it's steaming, I guess. But this might be too much. If you wanted to go for that look, you might want to tweak it some more. Maybe add a couple other things. Because if you just do like one noise, then this actually doesn't look too bad. Alright, so I think that's it for roughness and for the end of this tutorial. So we went from this to this. Now, just to close things, I know this wasn't the most like super edge of your seat interesting material, but sometimes you just gotta make stuff that might not be super interesting. But personally, I learned a lot because of the grout, kind of how to manipulate it, how to play with it, how to make it do what I wanted it to do. In hindsight, I probably should have done this tutorial in 4K, like using 4K textures instead of 2K, because I think we would have been able to get more information out of the smaller details. Because you can see here, it's like, pixelating and stuff. But at a distance in a video game, no one would probably be able to get that close unless you had like a sniper with like a 200 times scope. But I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out using real life references. Here's a picture I took afterwards. Now I know it's not one to one, but like a bunch of different tiles look differently. So I was pretty happy with the result. This was more of a study on matching, materials or surfaces around me. So like I said, not every material is going to be like super interesting and super fun and have a missive and be sci-fi or fantasy or whatever. But there's definitely some good stuff in this one. Um, so hopefully you guys learned something. And I think the next one is going to be rocks related. I've already started kind of learning about rock because I haven't done rocks much. But that one should be a little bit more interesting than this one. But I hope you guys learned something, and I'll see you guys on the next one.